It was one of those nights, dark and rainy. Since it was the beginning of autumn, we were going to see more and more of these cold and dark nights. The coffee I had earlier was the only thing that was warm lately in my life. After my sister disappeared, every day was grey. She was the best sister someone could imagine, and she was gone. One day she just disappeared into the cold, dark night, like the one tonight. This is why my way led me to this part of town. Cigarette smoke and red lights. Men standing in front of doors with their hands in their pockets, their back pressed against the wall, smirking. When people go past them, you know the kind. The one who will enter the dark alleys or those red lights. This part of town was not the safest for a woman like me, but I had to. I had to find my sister, by any means necessary. Walking, the soft sound of the rain could make anyone relax, but not me. I was in high alert, mostly because of the street my path led me to was in sad dark alleys. But I have no time to lose. I made my way hastily through the quiet street and find myself in front of what I was looking for, a dimly lit building and a small sign. This was the one I was looking for. He was the one. I walked toward the building in the cold rain. As I stepped, I felt the water droplets on my ankle dripping downwards and resting on my shoes. I had no time to stop and wipe it off. This time, I was determined. I want this detective. I want him. I opened the door and the corridor awaited me with smoke and sweet, intoxicating smell of alcohol. As I walked, my footsteps echoed in the empty corridor. I passed doors that would have led me to dark rooms. Those were not what I was looking for. Then I found it. My heart started pounding. This. The only door that still let light out, letting me know that he, who I was looking for, is still here. Working ever so late in this rainy, miserable night. The only ones in this time who were awake are the ones who worked for the force, and those who broke the law, and me, who wanted to hire him. One of the best. As I stood in front of the door, my hand started to move towards the doorknob, but stopped halfway and began to shake. I had good reason why. As I wanted to muster up some courage to enter, a voice broke the deafening silence that only the muffled sound of the rain broke. It invited me inside, in the most ridiculously rude way, might I add. Then I opened the door. It creaked as I did so, and my eyes had to adjust to the dim light that only a small desk lamp provided. But there he was, the detective. I saw him a couple of times on the newspaper. They called him the Bloodhound. He invited me in, saying I let the worm out if I keep the door open, so I closed it. To be completely honest, I would have left it open as the place reeked of the smell of whiskey. At least I know why the corridor smelled the way it is. He pointed at a chair in front of his desk, suggesting I should sit down. But my emotions were too high for me to sit. I would rather stand if you don't mind, detective. He turned towards me as I said this, and the light finally revealed his face in real life. He was way more attractive than what the picture showed in the papers. Who knew a man so young for a detective would earn such a name for himself? He asked me what he could do for me, and my heart bounced. I want to hire you, detective. My sister disappeared a week ago. I want you to find her, even if she's... He finished the sentence for me, and my eyes started to water. His tone was bored and invasive, and I would have loved to slap him on that attractive face of his. He sat down, legs on his desk, and I didn't know what to make of it. In the papers they said his manners needed some work, but this tone... Excuse me, detective, but... He shut me off with a look above the drink he were just having. His eyes pierced through mine, and I felt like he would know every secret of mine. It was a very unpleasant feeling, and I didn't care for it. I huffed. He smirked and looked me up and down like I was some sort of meat at the butcher's. Then he said he wanted to know what I know about my sister. The last time I saw her was last week, when we had that big storm, and since then, not even a peep. I don't know what I will do without her. My eyes started to tear up as I spoke, and my voice broke. I looked at the detective thinking he will ridicule me, but he fixed his eyes on mine, like he wanted to read my mind through them. I carried on. He stood up, walked towards the other side of the desk, where I was standing, and leaned against it, right in front of me, both hands grabbing the edge of the desk, legs crossed by the ankle, his eyes fixed on me, and I felt warm on my face. I continued. I will be honest. I went to the police before I came here, but since me and my sister inherited a business from our father, let's just say I am a primary suspect in her disappearance. He asked me if I killed her. So bluntly my mouth fell agape and my voice left me. I couldn't speak. All I could do was whisper a faint no. He hummed and looked at me up and down, asking me if I want a drink. I said yes. I was not a drinker. The matter of the fact is that I could not handle alcohol in any way. But that moment I couldn't say no to this detective. I wanted his help. While he was pouring the drink, I carried on talking, watching his back as he moved from one side to the other, pouring a drink for me in a mug. I love my sister. I would never hurt her. And if I would have, why on earth would I come to a detective who the media called the bloodhound? He turned with a drink in his hand and said, for money and power, and the best disguise is if I pretend I cared. I felt angry. Well, isn't that your job to sniff out bloodhound? He replied his nose got blocked with my perfume and handed the drink in a specifically ugly mug. I didn't want to think about if it was clean or not. I had a sip. The strong alcohol burned my tongue down and throat and made me grin. He laughed. Damn it to hell, why he had to be so good looking. I carried on. I will pay you a lot to find my sister, detective. I held up a check. This is just the half. The other half is when you find her and bring her back. He didn't move. Please, I told him. I did not hurt her in any way. Besides, I was a very light alcohol consumer, so to say, and that one big sip already started to get in my head. I put the hat I was wearing on the chair next to me. His eyes widened. I took one step closer to him. Even I didn't know what my plan was, but I wanted to find my sister by any way necessary. I hate the business my father left to us. It stinks. A factory. It earns a loads of money, that's for sure, but at the same time, it stinks. And not the way you would think. I walked towards him, then towards the window. I watched how the fat raindrops dripped down the window, leaving a small trail behind, then disappeared like they never existed. And I carried on. He stood up from the desk, stamped next to me, and handed me my drink. I could smell his cologne, dark, musky smell. It suited him. Kind of strong, but still pleasant on the nose. Mixed well together with the smell of the drink, and I felt my head feel a bit woozy. I carried on. You know, I never really liked father. He had some shady business, dark like the night. Sometimes people came to our house, and I have never saw them leave. Dark shadows cast over his head, and it reminded me of a storm. And then one day, the thunder struck. He asked if my father was killed, and I said yes. He was a bad man, a bad person, and not a great father either. He had shadows following him. This is why I hate that he left anything for us. Maybe this factory is sound. It's not shady. But it costed people a lot. Way too much. I gulped down my remaining drink, and it burned. I turned away from the detective because I didn't want him to see me angry to a point it drove me on the verge of crying. I thought he would make a funny remark on how emotional I am. He didn't. He sighed. He walked towards the desk and put the check in his pocket. My eyes widened. So you take the job? Thank you. I felt relieved. He took the job. I will be able to see my sister again. Hopefully alive. A faint light of hope appeared in front of my eyes, and I clutched my hands together in front of my chest. Thank you. I said again, and he leaned against his desk. Damn it to hell, why he had to be so attractive? The lines of his body, the way he smirked at me while asking me if I want another drink, and the way my voice went up an octave while I said, "Yep." I shouldn't have asked for a second drink, but my mind had been already clouded. I was exhausted because of my sister's disappearance. Dealing with the factory alone, and now the feeling that finally someone will help me find her. He handed me my drink and started asking questions about my sister. At that moment I saw he was taking the job seriously, so I taught him everything he needed to know, not more. I still held back on father's business. He didn't need it to know that. Slowly the alcohol started to affect my brain and my judgment, and before I knew I was having my third drink, then my fourth. He loosened the tie around his neck and removed his coat, unbuttoned the top button of his shirt, rolled his sleeves up, and sat across me. We were having a casual conversation, even laughing. His humor was a breath of fresh air. Someone finally didn't kiss up to me because my father's status. It was nice. We sat across each other, him on his desk and me in a chair in front of him. My legs crossed and the dress I was wearing slipped up, revealing my knee and half my tights. I noticed him looking at it, and I moved my head to one side like a puppy when she tries to figure something out. A smile appeared on my face, but this was not the time for such doings. I fixed my skirt and stood up. I apologize, detective, but it's very late now. I should get back home, and I'm pretty sure you will have to do something else too. He didn't resist. Part of me hoped he would want to make me stay, but no. I was going to spend this night alone, by the look of it. He handed me my hat that was resting next to him now, and walked me to the door. His scent was intoxicating, and I wanted to stay. Or was I? Damn it. Probably the alcohol's doing, but I wanted to be with him, if nothing, for tonight. At least to forget about everything that happened so far. Just to see how accurate my imagination is. To run my nails down his spine and grab. At that moment my hand stopped on the doorknob. Took me a second to realize he was standing right behind me, one of his hand holding mine on the doorknob, the other next to me, caging me between him and the door. I felt his breath on my neck and it was warm, so warm, but smelled like whiskey. I felt the little hair stand up on my neck and lower back as he took my hat off without a word and took the clip out of my hair. I felt as he brushed my hair out of my neck and he pressed his face against my bare skin. My chest started to rise up and down faster than before as he breathed down my neck, and it was so warm. I never felt like this before. I felt as he stepped closer to me, pushing himself against my back, and I felt his excitement. He bent his arm that was holding me captivated between him and the door, and I slowly let myself push to the door as he whispered in my ear, "I want you," he said to me in a voice raspy from the drink and it being extremely late.